scope of the panel is basically scaling trustworthy AI with exascale systems. Just to set the scene, as you know, we are probably already entered a very exciting era of the AI, particularly dealing with very large scale models, dealing with LLMs and foundational models and things like that. As the complexity of these, as the scale grows, the complexity grows. But that also sort of leaves us in a slightly different territory. We are beginning to kind of lose the ground in terms of actually verifying them, understanding them, and trusting them as the scale really grows. The scope of the panel is actually to begin to discuss. It's only a 30 minutes session, so we can't actually cover the whole ground of it, but the conference has already covered quite a lot around it. But the scope is basically to begin to discuss what we should do in terms of bridging the gap between these large-scale models and how do we actually grow into the capability of trusting them and bringing the capability to building trust aspects of it. So with me, we have obviously, the panel members very well. So I'm going to really start with a very basic set of questions. So to the panel members, so where are we today, really, in terms of real terminology, in terms of the current large-scale models and trustworthiness? So in other words, what is the status quo?
I don't know. I can. So I think that at least with Apertus, we tried really to do a first step towards trustworthiness, and that is being transparent and being able to also, I think, being able to check why a model behaves a given way or to reproduce it is really one of the first steps to be able to be trustworthy. That doesn't mean that we are already there, but it's a first step. And I think the other models, obviously we have one we want to sell, but I think you look and they are just open weights and you cannot really check how they have been treated. And so for me, being a precondition to being trustworthy is being really transparent about the whole process.
Okay, thank you, Fauzi. Anyone else? Craig?
Well, I think we first need to pick out what we mean by trustworthiness. And there's issues on fairness and bias, reliability, explainability, accountability, and then something that's a little more closer to my home is uncertainty quantification. And I think the current status quo is there's been work in each one of those in isolation, but I don't believe anything's happened yet that combines multiple aspects of these or anything across the board. And I think that's where we need to head towards, keeping each one of those individual points in mind.
Thanks, Craig. I have some follow-up questions, but probably move on to the other panel members. Kemal, maybe Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, really, I actually just wanted to echo the answer about Apertus. I mean, like, to me, open weights is not fully trustworthy. And like, I would view open source, like properly fully open source, as borderline synonymous with trustworthy. Because to me, like, what it means to trust something is to say, I can repeat this myself and verify the answer. Yeah.
Thanks, Andrew. Kemal?
Yeah, I believe that ChatGPT has created a smoke screen in which a huge number of people, like 800 million per week, is using for a variety of purposes and eventually blindly trusting or believing what's in and thinking that AI is here. So in consumer space, it's a kind of addiction to this in different ways, while corporate enterprise domain is more prudent and careful. So When I think about what's the current situation, I believe it's a positive bubble, $3 trillion, which is economy of France, for example. And as always, whatever happens, we will see positive rest. But once we have AI systems trusted at that level that they will not produce addiction, that they will not produce critical cases as people killing themselves, being advised by ChatGPT, you know, it's a serious question. And by now, it goes without a clear direction. To my mind, the next step of this will be also not only look at the large language models, but on small language models, in which they will be embedding technologies into something like stethoscope or connecting my ring, my glasses, my watch with tablet. I will be practically instrumented. Imagine now what's your life, what will happen with your insurance, your private life, your bank, etc., etc. So to my mind, we should be aware that there is a smoke screen right now, but I believe that it will be better after.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the optimistic view. Hubert.
Yeah, so I was thinking like, fingers crossed it would be good, but the data it's trained on, I think, kind of has the trustworthiness problem here, right? Because it's trained on human data. Humans sometimes can't be trusted. And then so you ask a model to reply to you and it gives you an answer that it wants you to see. And then you go, oh, well, actually, you're wrong here. Oh, well, of course. Well, I've corrected it now for you. So how can we stop this from happening, right? It's, I know, potentially data curation, but then as people, we're biased. And so we'll be biased in selecting the data to be used. So I think that for me is the trustworthiness problem, right? Especially just now that when these things are linked into like MCPs, right? They get given tools, access to databases. There's already a problem initially, but now you've given it tools to, you know, who knows do what, right? I mean, there's been problems of as like experiments. You can have it potentially leak information, right? They're because they're trained on human information, they actually are susceptible to scams and phishing attempts, just like any one of us could be. So how do we fix these things? It's a bit of a question.
Thanks, Hubert. Hubert.
Just to add, deception is in reality behavior in which you see that ChatGPT is spying on you. And that's the reason why Bloomberg is using ChatGPT internally and forbidding employees to go externally. Next thing, which I see as a huge problem, as they have practically acquired all data available of any avenue of the life, they start producing synthetic data. And then you come to the point of self-poisoning, because you are somehow using data produced by yourself, you know, and you have a situation in which probably we will come to the point in which data will be practically garbage, you know, if they start or if they continue to create these torrents of data. More than half traffic today goes to ChatGPT, probably.
Okay, thank you. Just to sort of summarize it, I think there are a number of issues they really sort of highlighted in terms of the contemporary issues. Starting with the actual definition of it, what do we really mean by trustworthiness? There are possibly orthogonal or non-orthogonal axis view of it. Of course, the metric of it, and then how do we the data leakage bias and things like that. So maybe there are follow-up questions on it, but probably I'll open the forum for the floor as well. Please feel free to raise questions, or probably I don't know whether there are online means to raise the questions.
Nothing online just right now, but I do want to add to the point, because I don't think it was addressed. There is that human element, the people that actually control the LLM. Right, the people that are behind the scenes, and you're trusting that company to do the right thing. And we've already seen it just a few months ago, where a bad actor at X played with Grok and changed things, and the next thing you know, for 12 hours, Grok was Mecha Hitler. So the responses coming back were absolutely ridiculous, and so ridiculous where you could see obviously some things were fake, you know, very fake, very bad, but if it wasn't so tweaked to that degree, how would we know? There's got to be some trust within those companies that control the LLMs. Is there a question? Yes.
A lot of the useful insights we just heard were about the capability of these machine learning methodologies in general. Would the panel have any other thoughts about the application of these things to science and scholarship, in particular, the use of the tools, the use of the methods, the use of AI assisted programming, the use of all these modeling tools to do science?
Okay, over to you, panel members. I probably have my own views, but I'll steer you from that. So, Kima, you want to go first, or Hubert?
Yeah, it's been quite for example, as it sort of electronic structure and material stuff. There's MACE, right, which is this big machine learned model for getting interatomic potentials, and that's quite good because you do a lot of DFT, you have a bunch of training data, you can then go from your whatever material you have straight to the electronic or the interaction or the interatomic potentials, and then you run simulations that way. So that's fantastic, but then that's a black box, right? It's like, what is it doing there? It is useful. I do think it's very useful for science, but there should be some interpretability in there somehow. And so another one, I think, for coding, it makes it more accessible. So maybe depending on what code it's writing, it might not necessarily get it correct. But for pouring through documentation, absolutely fantastic, right? If you're a new user that wants to implement some API, for example, you go, oh, how can I do this? Can you give me some suggestions? And it will just rip it all out and go, here you go, here are some functions. You can start from here. So I think it can be very useful.
Thanks, Hubert.
There is a whole slew of articles in Science and Nature magazine indicating all kind of dangers in the future, including a scientist called Einstein. So being able to produce hypotheses, to create experiments, to interpret experiments and conclude something. Now, probably it's still experimental and other things, but imagine this thing start pushing out theories and things. How to ensure that tomorrow we will be not poisoning science in the same way as we are somehow poisoning in media space, in which you're all aware what's happening. Up until now, apparently science was somehow protected, but anyone looking into articles I mentioned in Science and Nature magazine will see that it's flooded now by things, including reviews done by ChatGPT or whatever happens in this domain.
Okay, thanks, Kima. Andrew, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, only briefly, just to say that I think, well, first of all, that these models are being used in so many different places that it's difficult to give one single answer. But I guess I would say, since it was mentioned in terms of like using them for reviews and actual text of papers, I think it is kind of dangerous in the sense that these models have the ability to generate lots of very reasonable looking text, which is actually not accurate. And that particularly in science, it's difficult to comb through sometimes and verify that absolutely everything is sensible. And like absolutely in maths, there are lemmas which are like taken as a given because you can cite some paper and actually like it's false and the proof was false. And that's true for other fields too. And I would worry the more it gets used, the harder it is to distinguish the actual true stuff from the very close to looking true stuff.
Before I forget, my apologies. Case real. I'm on ACM Ubiquity magazine, senior editor. We had submission and colleagues detected that reference list is made by ChatGPT. We checked twice and then we have rejected this and saying, these references are made by ChatGPT. Is that true? And author said, yes, it's true. And policy, ACM policy, is you can't use it. So it was refused. But then you need humans still looking into it, detecting, being suspicious and finding.
Thank you, Kimball. Fawzi?
I agree with the danger with review text and in general manipulation also from social media then to reviews and papers. But I'm, on the other hand, quite optimistic about the use of these tools in science, really for models, for example, as it was said, for example, for force field or to replace, and I'm saying, yes, it's a black box, but I come from DFT. DFT, you have the exchange correlation functional where you hide all sorts of things, and it's also a black box. So I wouldn't worry so much if it's done properly and you check and you train it well and you have some control on that it's not extrapolating without data and these kind of things. I think it's a place where I see a big potential for avoiding calculation that might be much more expensive and come to an equivalent result or maybe even a better result in a much shorter computational time.
Yeah, thank you, Fawzi. Great.
I think I'm going to say the same answer, but in different words. To be direct, it's inevitable. Bad actors are going to use it in malicious ways, but honourable actors are going to use it in honourable ways. I think the key is regulation. There is very little at the moment, if any at all, particularly across universities. I'm working on a working group at the moment on AI policy for healthcare, and it is scarily sparse. And I think that's the key that we need to focus on. How do we regulate this use? Because I often say to my students, it's simply this generation's calculator or slide rule, depending on which generation you are in. And it's going to be used. It's just a tool. It's how we regulate it.
Okay, thanks, Greg. Thank you. I hope that sort of answers the question. There are a number of things that really came out of it, including human in the loop, redefinition of it, and also the bringing the sort of a policy into the science bit. So maybe we'll move on to the next questions. Brian.
Thanks, everybody. That you've made some really insightful points in this discussion, and Apertus and Brit LLM, very, very interesting, as they're maybe significantly less likely to spew hate speech or, at the whim of some eccentric tech billionaire. But I am conscious that when we train these sovereign AI models, we've got to train them with something. So, you used Fine Web, which is based on Common Crawl. And we've got this issue that Common Crawl is the web, and the web is now heavily polluted with LLM-generated garbage, slop, as the saying has it. And I was kind of curious about how, because that sort of poisoning the well effect then becomes part of your training data, if you have a plan or a strategy for excluding websites, other content which is obviously slop, can you detect it? Can you exclude it? Is that on your roadmap? And that's particularly for the Apertus folk, but interested in other people's perspectives. Thank you.
Thank you. Over to you, Fawzi.
Yes, that's definitely an issue. And we obviously try. We have trained a model to to try to detect the reliability or trustworthiness of the inputs. And it's even worse in the sense there are now both a lot of slop that to influence people, and also there are tar pits that explicitly try to poison models like Nepenthes and so on, because some people don't like that their data is used for training ML models. Now we are using a common crawl that is not the latest, so that it's hopefully less an issue. And we publish the data and we try to rank it and filter it. There is no easy solution. And that's also one of the reasons that being open is just the first step. Then you have all the hard work of really training it on good data and being sure that it's useful. And also one thing is that we have done with Apertus is the cool-off, the last training. It's something that is commonly done. You select high-quality data, and because the last one you train influences it more. And we selected better data, what we consider better data in the last cool-off period to hopefully give it a higher weight in the training.
So thank you, Rosie. Anyone else want to add to this one?
Actually, a question. How do you determine the quality of the data? So you had a ranking system, but how?
Yeah, it's a model. It's another model that we trained, and it seems to work reasonably well. You can train, because it's a simpler model, just to evaluate the data. You can have a subset of data where you have it manually done, and then you train the model on that, and you use it on all the data. And this seems to give good result, and it's commonly used. It's not just Apertus that does something like that. That's
okay. I guess another one. Have you tried to have a look at what influences the decision? So is there a way to look at on the interpretability end? Right, you've got these small models. Is there a way to try and have a look at, oh, okay, this part of the input data was what signified it as good or bad, right?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. There are people that are looking at that, but we don't have it's a common problem, and it's not yet solved.
Just curious.
Thank you very much. I think just to remind, I think we are on the panel session looking into scalability and trustworthiness. So over to you, Mark.
So earlier on in the discussion, when you were talking about using AI for reviewing papers and writing papers, so Andrew, you mentioned about the difficulty of actually checking whether everything has been correctly done. And in your talk, Kamal, you had said about the need to certify things. So my question is, how can we certify models if they're too hard to check?
I believe that this will not happen anytime soon, because of all disagreements, different systems. And at the same time, when you look at the cases of certification of usual things, as cars. So car is by technical control certified, and driver is certified by exam and having driving license. I believe that something in the future should be reused from previous certification things. How to do it exactly? It might be something which I'm bringing from my experience in Italy. I worked on the project in which we have used graph probabilistic models to judge or to discuss probability of failure of the software which is in avionics or in bullet space. How is it called? When you are stopping, we are using what brakes? Yeah. Since on 300 or 400 kilometers, you have to be sure, or in avionics, in which you have 5 systems to discuss. Certification goes like model, which in this case, many years ago, was on graph probabilistic model, and then giving the numbers, because at the end, there will be threshold in which system will be certified or not. So that's the reason why mentioning importance of modeling this, discussing and establishing something for the policy will be extremely important. And one more thing I would like to add about data. major proportion of AI projects in reality are hiding dirty secret. Inside, 80% is about data. And data is about scrubbing, formatting, doing, checking, whatever. And then you get surprised by seeing that in 6 corporate projects on big data, 4 or 5 are failing. So one should be extremely careful when deciding where to start this. And data is a good starting point.
Thank you very much, Fawzi.
Yeah, the question about how to certify in practice was something that I wanted to ask too, because it's not easy, especially that LLM learn. If you put the question of the test or so, they quickly improve, but it's unclear then if they have learned the general thing or just the specific one, and then they pass the test much better, but they haven't really gotten the meaningful improvement in what you really want to check, but just on that narrow test that you are doing.
It's deception, and deception is system is trying to align with you, trying to guess what you would like, and then it's deception.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else want to add to this one?
I mean, only that you do have this problem in terms of, I guess, yeah, alignment and testing, where effectively you can give 2 tests. And I think that as LMs become smarter, quote unquote smarter, it becomes increasingly dangerous, is that you have 2 types of tests, right? One where you, for example, you're training a coding model and you want to say, does this thing produce fast, efficient code? And then you have a second safety test where you say, does this thing avoid doing the dangerous things? And the risk that we're now encountering is that if a model can tell in the training phase which of those, in the alignment phase, which of those 2 tests is being given, then effectively it has 2 different sets of weights. It has the fast, efficient stuff and the safe stuff. And you go, all my tests are passing, it's safe and it's fast, and that's great. But then a user doesn't know which one they get, and potentially they get the dangerous one. And I think that's an increasingly difficult issue to deal with.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. If no one wants to answer anymore, right. Yeah, last question for the panel.
Just to add to the problem of quality of data, the Royal Society of Chemistry magazine, Chemistry World, meanwhile, was reporting the latest issue about paper mills. Now, paper mills are not mills which are making paper, they are chewing out publications. Previously, they were relatively easy to spot because the quality was low. The English was not so good, and the pictures have been reused. So if there was a spot on the picture, you could very easily detect it. So quite a number of papers have been, or manuscripts have been redacted. Meanwhile, the quality is absolutely superb. The text, the English is much better. And on top of it, the artificial generated pictures, you can't discriminate anymore. You can't say this Western blot or this CT scan of a brain is actually a real one or a fake one. And they make it into reputable journals, and they will be published, and people will base their research on it. This is where we are, just to add to this.
Okay, thank you. Mark, you had a question?
Sure. I'll just close it out. Oh, okay.
Just going back to the previous discussion, I think we shouldn't be unfair to AI either, because what you described, Andrew, some car manufacturers did effectively that with getting around the emissions testing, and people didn't know. So we need to find ways that we can spot that that's happened, but we don't need AI to be better than we've ever been before in being honest, as it were.
Okay, thank you, Mark. I think probably this marks the end of the panel. So let's remain positive and see whether the trustworthiness basically scales with the AI and the models. Thank you very much. Thanks, panel. Thank you.